They're playing kick the can. Don't you remember? Oh, we used to play it all the time. What a running and shouting.
Man, all that noise.
Well, you can't stop kids from playing kick the can. It's like statues and hide and seek. It's in their blood. It's a special summer ritual. Did you ever stop to think of it? All kids play those games, and the minute they stop, they begin to grow old.
Hello, and welcome to the Twilight Pwn, the internet's third most popular Twilight Zone podcast. My name is John. I'm joined by my co-host Fred.
Hello.
How you doing this week, Fred?
I'm good. In that little opening litany of kids games when he's like, it's like statues or hide and go seek.
Oh,
Did you really expect him to say Ringalivio?
I wanted it. I
Yeah.
wanted it bad.
I wanted it bad.
I mean, granted, the guy who wrote Horace Ford wasn't a Serling pen.
Right.
Well, but this
True.
isn't.
No, this is George Clinton
yeah.
Johnson, yeah.
So I don't know. For continuity's sake in the Zoneverse, I really wanted some Ringalivio. But,
Yeah, didn't get it.
You know, I was reading a book the other day. I forget what I was reading. I think it was a Trevenian novel, and they name-checked Ringalivio. And I'm sure it's one of those words that I'd, like, glossed over and just it never clicked until I had to make fun of it for a podcast.
Yeah. It definitely has the feeling of like, I get the basic idea of what that is, don't care.
Yeah.
But when you hear Horace Ford say it, you pay attention.
And you start noticing it. I realized that I'm part of like an adult Ringalivio league 3 nights.
I bet you there is a Brooklyn Ringalivio.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess I'm doing well. I mean, I'm sure that you've been kind of like engaged in the long come down for Monster Bash last weekend.
Yeah, you know, just trying to keep in touch with people. You know, you
Yeah,
say
sure.
you're going to hang out all the time, but it
Yeah.
slowly fades until next year's bash.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's hard to recapture the magic of the bash.
I mean, there's just something about the weekend.
Yeah.
You know, there are no rules. It's just about the bash.
Yeah. Oh, God. I really hope we can keep Monster Bash magic going until the end of the podcast. This episode will come out on Thursday, which is only a few days before Halloween, and we've chosen probably the least Halloween-appropriate episode of the Twilight Zone that's possible.
Either yesterday or early today, I forget when, I was thinking like, oh man, Halloween's coming. We should do a scary episode for our next episode. And I even like started Googling what are the scary ones that we haven't done yet. And I was going to talk to you. I was like, oh, we should pick one. And then when I was sitting down to record, I glanced at the calendar and was like, oh, we'll be recording on the day after Halloween, and we'll release it like a week.
This is our week
good. We're
after
on
Halloween
pace.
special. Well, we've already screwed up Christmas 2 years running, so what's Halloween? What is this magical, inappropriate
This
episode
terrifying,
we keep talking about?
probably, in many people's opinion, the scariest episode of the Twilight Zone.
Spectacular Twilight Bone special episode.
We're going to discuss Kick the Can, a third season episode.
Ooh, the chills are running down my spine.
I mean, it's not even one you could arguably, like, I Sing the Body Electric has some, like, means to be sentimental, but it's creepy. Like, no, this one's just down the pipes. All right. We're going to discuss Kick the Can, third season, 86th episode of the production, February 9th, 1962.
Sunnyvale Rest, a home for the aged, a dying place, and a common children's game called Kick the Can. It will shortly become a refuge for a man who knows he will die in this world if he doesn't escape into the Twilight Zone.
Kind of in and out there.
Yeah.
Anyway, we like to write our own Serling-style intros. Mine is not very abrupt and to the point, so I'd like to give...
I took this as like a flyer that we could try and keep them short this time, but all right, yeah, go for it.
I didn't get that memo, so here we go. Sunnyvale Rest, a home for the aged, a dying place, and a common children's game called World of Warcraft that will shortly become a refuge for a man who knows he will die in this world if he doesn't escape into Azeroth before the orc hordes arrive from Draenor. Charles Whitley, a man at the backwash end of life's lemonade, will convince his ragtag gang of aging pals to sneak out of their nursing home in the middle of the night, then sneak right back into their computers and spend their social security checks on weapons upgrades they purchased from Chinese hackers. That is, if mean old Dean Cox doesn't stop them before the Legion's expansion set comes out. Another heartwarming tale from the Twilight Zone.
I'm not just trying to, like, you know, inhabit my jock mantle on the show, but I felt very confused. As soon as I heard World of Warcraft, I was like, I'm going to try and keep up. And it's like, is that actually the thing, or is he making it? And then, Chinese hackers sell web. I was just like, I don't understand anything.
Yeah. Well, full confession, I guess I'm the nerdy one on the podcast, but I've definitely never, within a spectrum that we're both on. I mean, I didn't go to Monster Bash or anything. I've never played World of Warcraft. That was all just stuff I looked up on Wikipedia. But I figured probably among our listenership, it's not a huge stretch to get that most people will get that.
Cool.
And I do know that Chinese hacker, like people sometimes just sit in China and grind out like weapons upgrades and then just sell them for $5 on eBay.
Interesting. Okay. Learn something new every day.
Yes, exactly.
Sunnyvale Rest, or as it's known to the elderly inhabitants who infest the edifice, Sunnyvale Death. And Kick the Can, or as it's known to the frenetically fast freckle-faced Frannies and Freddies, Kick the Man who is old because old age is for losers. Tonight, a man, a plan, a can, all Panama. I mean, the Twilight Zone.
Oh, man. Sounds like we both stretched a little bit this week.
Who doesn't love a good palindrome joke mangled?
Anyway, it's a third season episode. You can check it out on Netflix, Hulu, and it's probably available from more nefarious sources as well.
I hear Chinese hackers,
yes,
they're just grinding out episodes.
I was kind of contemplating, does that sound like twitchy? But it's just they're from China and they're hackers. Yeah, there you go. Anyway, it's available for you to stream, so check it out before we get going because we're about to spoil the plot, which opens on a, I guess is a nursing home or rest home? What's the current PC term?
Retirement community, and probably be the nicest way to say it, but senior living facility. Right. I don't know.
Senior assisted retirement community living facility.
Twitch. I don't know.
Yeah, it's called Sunnyvale Rest.
Yeah, we open on a lovely sign of Sunnyvale Rest, and I don't know about you, but having just watched Mr. Garrity in the Graves, I couldn't help but think like I just pictured the 179 dead on there.
Yes, exactly. Well, it is a assisted community retirement living facility, so it is kind of funny because I noticed something on the sign too, which is that Sunnyvale Rest is on the address is 478 Tranquility Lane, which definitely sounds like a real estate scam street name, but it's like it just really speaks to like the Twilight Zone's penchant for, appropriately named streets. It's always like Homewood.
Right.
Or,
if it's a large enough community, even though this one really just looks like a rather large house, but, I don't know. I went to Lowe's the other day and I had to take the last turn was to drive onto Lowe's Boulevard. So, like.
Yeah, so that's it's a common thing out in the suburbs where it's like.
No one really cares.
Or whatever. Yeah, no, I hear you. But it's something about it. It's like. That makes you wonder if like Monsters on Maple Street had been called like Monsters on Conformity Way or whatever. It's a little too on the nose, but whatever. It's Sunnyvale Rest. We then cut inside this retirement nursing center community facility, and we get kind of like a Scorsesean continuous shot. Except instead of like the Copa, it's like a bunch of depressed-looking old people.
Ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be an old retired guy.
Yeah, exactly. No, but it is a nice shot. Then finally it rests on an old guy who's not going to take this depressing nursing home community anymore. He's dressed up in a suit, and he's got a suitcase, and he announces to everyone that his son is going to come pick him up. The son arrives in a car. Old Pops jumps in, and the son sort of drives him over to the empty lot and lets him know that they're not hiring.
Yeah, the son is basically like, Pop, I said that I'd come and mess with your head, not that you could stay with us. Come on.
Yeah. I thought I said I'd falsely get your expectations up. I do just want to praise the filmmaking here because you get about like 4 or 5 minutes into the episode and there's really only 2 lines of dialogue. Right. It's the dude saying, my son's going to come pick me up, and the son saying, Dad, I said I'd come talk it over, not that I'd come pick you up. And but the story has a lot of emotional nuance because they're cutting to the reactions of the people in the nursing home. And then you also see these kids playing Kick the Can around. And it's like a nice scene with like a intro, like a climax, and a resolution, just made out of 2 lines of dialogue. It's very
totally
cool.
It's very effectively made, and having the rest of the inhabitants all around, like, it just adds a whole other layer of, you know, embarrassment, which kind of makes the emotions richer, that he's kind of just bragged that he's out of there, and then they're all watching his, you know, him come up short.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm agreeing with what you're saying.
It's a funny thing to brag about, like, how you like me now.
Yes.
I'm gonna live in my son's attic. Peace. Anyway, the scene ends on kind of a sad note.
The score by Harry Chapin kicks in.
Yes. Charles Whitley, feeling kind of rejected and dejected, sits down under a tree and sort of idly picks up the can that the kids are playing kick the can with. And then we pan over to potentially my favorite Serling walks into the scene yet. Because it really just looks like he just kind of went into the woods to take a pee and is coming out.
It's funny.
Oh, hey.
I had a slightly different take. I felt like it kind of looked like he stumbled out of the woods, and I really had to feel like the police were about to come out of the brush and tackle him at any second.
Yeah. It's just kind of like dusting himself off, you know. There's a lot of old cans back there. Right. It's kind of Serling as vagabond.
It's one of the less dignified Serling intros. Yes. It's like this and him coming out of the outhouse in that Old West one. Yeah.
Anyway, he steps out from behind the bushes and delivers a very terse intro. And we're back to the plot.
Can we take a short time out and just... Can I ask, have you ever played Kick the Can?
No. And it's funny because... Until we did this episode, I mean, I've seen this episode before, but until I sat down to do the research, my assumption was basically that it's just like kids running around kicking a can. Like, there are no formal rules. But apparently it's like a game. It's like some sort of capture the flag-esque game. Okay. Did you look it up?
No, I didn't look it up. I've never played it. It just has a very hobo child feel to it. Like, it's like we're too poor to have a ball. We've got a can. It's like, I'm pretty sure like every third world country has like a soccer ball, but somehow there was like this weird part of America where they're like, we play with cans. Like,
we don't take kindly to your foreign balls around here. I'm trying to think of like a more depressing,
just has like a willfully poor feel to it. Yeah, it's like pin the foreclosure summons on the property.
Yeah, pin the dust on the hobo.
It's a specific time, but it's totally ready for like a hipster renaissance.
Yes, exactly, right. Well, when the Ring Alivio team schedule conflicts with the Kick the Can schedule, a lot of guys with beards have a tough call to make. Old man Whitley, or Whitley is back up in his room. Whitley? And he's back up in his room and he's thinking things over. He stole the kid's can, which I think is kind of funny. Really just doesn't give it back.
Yeah, those kids are set back for months saving up enough money for a new empty can.
Yes, exactly. Saving up enough buffalo nickels. And he's talking over the situation with his grumpy ass roommate. This guy Ben, kind of got like a sort of an odd couple feel to it. And Ben is quickly set up as like a more grumpy old man than Whitley.
Boy, he's got a lot of problems. It's a small house and the second baby is on the way. It was a foolish idea thinking I could move in on them. They don't want an old duffer like me underfoot. No, this place is good enough for me.
I just thought, you don't hear much about young duffers. It's predominantly the old duffer.
There I was, a bright young duffer on the scene. They talk more about kids' games in this scene. I think you grabbed it for the intro, but they also mentioned a game called Statues, which I'd also never played. Although
is that like freeze tag or like
no,
red light,
it's red light, green light. It's red light, green light. Yeah, I looked up the Wikipedia page for that one, and it's funny because in the UK it's called Grandmother's Footsteps, apparently. I just love the concept of it. Like, you know, in Germany it's called Obey, Obey, Obey. But yeah, I was very much a red light, green light kid, totally. Not a Statues kid. Yeah. At some point or another, Whitley gets the cockamamie idea that maybe playing Kick the Can or playing kids' games is what's keeping the kids young. It's sort of like a whimsical suggestion.
Yeah. Maybe they know a secret that they keep from the rest of us.
Charles.
Maybe the fountain of youth isn't a fountain at all. Maybe it's a way of looking at things. A way of thinking.
Charles, stop it. You're an old man, don't you understand? Your youth has been gone for 60 years. What I mean is, you've lived a full life, Charles. Don't go sloppy now. Don't spoil up acting like a nut.
So, just based on that music cue, what's the tear count here, John?
I'm not gonna lie. You know, it's some of the same cues from Walking Distance, and they're still good.
Yeah.
They still got their good stuff. It's working.
No, I know. This is definitely a good sentimental episode.
So, yeah.
It comes out in that speech that they've actually been friends all their lives, and Whitley goes on to say, like, you didn't always used to be this way, Ben. You know, when you were a kid, you believed in the Tooth Fairy, and for some reason, I just found it weird to. I guess it's not that weird, but to imagine being in a nursing home with somebody that you grew up with as a kid.
I think it'd be kind of cool. Well, I mean, like if it, you know, not just like someone randomly, but you know, if you're gonna go into a retirement community, if you could be with your buddies, that'd be nice.
Are you saying you want to start the retirement home second most popular podcast?
I'm pretty sure there's already a Twilight Zone podcast.
Run out of retirement community. Well, we could be number 3.
We're not gonna name names.
Fair enough.
But yeah, it doesn't even say like you used to do bread and butter, which made me think like these guys must have been that couple in the street from Horace Ford.
Yes, exactly. Bread and butter is a very recurring Twilight Zone theme.
I've never heard of it. This is like just the bread and butter zone.
I know. Well, see, my mom used to, like. I think I mentioned that salt and pepper. Like when my mom would like hold my hand across streets when I was like 22 and 23. Sorry, when I was a kid, when my mom would hold my hand, we would do salt and pepper.
Would your dad do like kraut and schnitzel or something?
Yes, exactly. I'm tempted to make a very inappropriate joke about my German dad, but I'll let that go. Grumpy old Ben is ratting out his roomie Charles Whitley to the. I don't exactly know what this character is. He's very much the mean old dean of the retirement community.
He's like
sort of like the.
I think he's like the toughest screw in
yeah, he's like the Nurse Ratched of the joint. Yeah. He's like the supervisor. His name is something like Dean Cox or something. What is his name? It's
Mr.
Something
Cox.
Mr. Cox. Yep. Yeah. You know, obviously it's disturbing that Whitley would have these flights of fantasy, and Cox is. Appropriately named Cox is saying to old Ben, like, maybe he's getting senile, we got to keep an eye on him. And they go out and they find old Charlie really being the annoying guy at the party, sort of trying to rile everybody up.
He starts getting into Horace Ford territory pretty quick.
Yes, just a bit, yeah.
And hunt for pollywogs, huh? And run through sprinklers, huh?
I need to just isolate and keep that clip of, huh?
Yeah. Well, he then proceeds to run through the sprinkler on the lawn, and you get what they're going for, but the actor doesn't seem to be enjoying it that much. You know what I mean? Like, he's not a natural frolic.
Yeah, they needed to find a different whimsical activity for him, because, I mean, they're trying to strike a balance of, like, to certain people he looks nutty, and to other people he's inspired, but somehow this activity just does look. It doesn't even look nutty. It just looks a little desperate. It looks a little like forced fun. Like
yes, it really does, especially because the sprinkler is just kind of small.
I don't know, and it made me question, like, what age are you too old for running in the sprinklers? Like, I don't know. I'm thinking like 6, but
yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, remember when people used to change your diaper? Like, moving along, mean old Dean comes out and stops him from running through the sprinklers, and it seems very harsh. They're like talking about throwing him in solitary for a month to like straighten his old ass out.
Right. They just cut to him. He's got like a deep scar on his forehead, and then the Native American old person throws like the water fountain through a window.
Gets very punitive very quickly, but we don't see that. We cut to nighttime and everybody's snoring. And Charlie wakes up a couple of the other non-grumpy old people. And they're going to go on a panty raid. No, but the ladies
they're
wake
gonna
up too.
get those preppy old people over at Golden Sun.
It's hard to think of a preppy retirement community name, but Golden Sun is good. They all convene downstairs. That is everybody except, of course, for the mean old dean and for grumpy old Ben, trying to kind of rile up the old folks.
Yeah,
and he's explaining his.
You remember how we used to do it? We'd sneak out at night when the weather was like this, and we'd play kick the can.
Hell, everybody played that game, or hide and seek.
Yeah, seems like a million years ago.
Say, you know something? I was the fastest runner on our block. Yeah, whenever we played kick the can, I was never it. Look how I've changed.
It's cute.
That guy didn't exactly win an Oscar for that one. Yeah, no, it's a sweet little scene.
But it does start to have the vibe of like a multi-level marketing scheme pitch.
Just a bit, yeah.
Listen, can't you hear it? Summer, grass, run, jump, youth. Wake up! Wake up! Oh, this is your last chance. I can't play kick the can alone.
Oh, Captain, my Captain.
Yeah, it's somewhere between that or like a Tony Robbins infomercial, coach's halftime speech. But I mean, I'm teasing it, but I'm still, this. If they laid in the music, I'm with it.
Yeah, it's a nice little scene. I do think it's like, when you isolate the audio,
it takes away a lot of the power of it.
Yeah, it's nice because it has a tone of desperation and in this. I like to see old people be desperate. It's nice. It's really great. And we cut away before we find out what happens with that. But later on, Charlie is trying to get cranky old Ben to join up.
Come play kick the can.
Charles, come to your senses.
Ben, you're afraid. You're afraid of a new idea. You're afraid to look silly. You're afraid to make a mistake. You decided that you were an old man. And that has made you old.
I am old, and so are you, Charles, and that's a fact.
Fact.
Your bones are old, and they'll break if you try to run with them. Your heart is old, and your lungs are old. You're used up, worn out by a lifetime.
Is that the same guy from The Masks?
No.
Okay. He sounds like it, You kind of expect him to go like, and you, Herbert.
Right.
I can't go out with you. I gotta wait for my relatives to get here. Gotta talk to my voodoo contractor.
Right.
There is magic in the world. I know there is. When I fell in love with Mary and kissed her for the first time, that was magic. When my boy was born, that was magic. Friendship is a magic thing. Maybe I'm right, Ben. Maybe kick the can is the greatest magic of all.
Hurts so good, don't it, John?
Man, the music works. It works.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. No, it's very nice.
Yeah.
I like this one too. Anyway, Ben is not won over by the
he can't hear the score.
music that Charlie.
Charlie's like playing the phonograph right next to him. It's not working.
So Charlie's gotta proceed with Operation Jailbreak, and it involves like one of the old guys like throwing a firework out the window to distract the nurse.
Right.
I just had a vision of it like suddenly kind of turning dark and getting kind of violent, and like they have to like knock somebody out, and Charlie's like, "Hey, you want to play kick the can? You got to break a few eggs. Let's ride."
It does start cutting a little faster. It does start having maybe not a modern Ocean's 11 vibe, but maybe like a Sinatra Ocean's 11 level.
Yeah, but they managed to sneak out. So while that's going on, grumpy old Ben is ratting out his homies. But by the time he and the dean get outside, the sort of sounds of old people playing kick the can have morphed into the sounds of kids playing kick the can. And there's no oldies around. It's just a gang of neighborhood kids playing. Or are they? Because when the dean goes to double back and try and get the old people in a pincher maneuver, Ben sees a kid who he recognizes as young Charlie. And kind of nicely tying the bow on the fact that they grew up together. So he obviously recognizes the kid version of Charlie.
Charles! Charlie, is that you? Is that you, Charlie? Charlie? It's me, Benny. Charlie.
Take me with you. Take me with you. Charlie, wait for me. Wait.
That's went into the forest is rotten apple.
No, Charlie. No. Wait for me. Charlie. It's me. Charlie. It's me.
Happy Halloween. It's very sad.
Yeah. And the kid's kind of got a look of fear in his eye. Like, he doesn't quite get what's going on, which is an interesting read on it.
Yeah, I really like that because, like, to some degree that makes it a little bit ambiguous at the end. I mean, obviously, like, you're supposed to read into it as, like, okay, it worked and it is Charlie, but because Charlie's not like too late, old man, I'm a kid now. You know, it could potentially be like old Ben just like reading it wrong or something. You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
I like. Yeah, I mean, I kind of read it like I mean, I do think it's open to interpretation, but I do read it as like Charlie has, you know, not just reverted to youth, like in body, but in total. Yeah. So now he's a young kid again, and this crazy old man is harassing him, and so he's genuinely scared. But I do like how you point out there could be at least a little ambiguity in it.
I just think that, like, no matter whichever way you read it, I mean, I think your reading is definitely right. I just think the fact that they made it ambiguous is cool.
Yeah.
Because it would have been a little dorky if he's like, nya, you know, or just like, it's me, I'm old Ben in the body of a kid. Like, there's something kind of more, like, raw about him not recognizing old Ben and, like, kind of sad because it's
totally.
Like, maybe
he is completely left behind. Yeah, and it would have been strange, you know, if he had to interact with him and either explain that it's too late, or you know, if I don't
very long explanation of what is happening.
Yeah, it's just it's all handled very neatly that way. Yeah, and it works emotionally too. So kudos.
And that is the end of the episode. The kid Charlie runs off into the woods, and we kind of get a nicely sad shot of Ben.
Yeah, it's kind of a nice shot. It plays over Serling's outro, but it's kind of a long, lingering shot of old Ben slowly walking back into the house alone. I thought it was a good one. So here we go, Serling.
Sunnyvale Rest, a dying place for ancient people who have forgotten the fragile magic of youth. A dying place for those who have forgotten that childhood, maturity, and old age are curiously intertwined and not separate. A dying place for those who have grown too stiff in their thinking to visit the Twilight Zone.
It's kind of funny that we've been pointing out so many directorial things about this episode. I feel like this is one that really sticks out for being very well made. And it's just funny because it was directed by Lamont Johnson.
Good old horn dog.
And yeah, exactly. And if you haven't listened to earlier episodes of our podcast, that several times throughout the run of this cast, we've like uncovered quotes of Lamont Johnson like horn dogging on the actors in his episodes, and I just can't help but feel that like maybe just without the distraction of like you know a hot young thing around, he was really able to focus and do a great job directing, because this is definitely one of the more beautifully directed episodes of the Twilight Zone, and nary a hottie in sight.
Well, you know, depends on what you're into,
I guess. Anyway, one thought I had was just like, you know, obviously the focus of the episode is so much on old age, but it's also kind of about like conformity in a way, or like just being afraid to
dream the big dream.
Or just like being afraid to like accept a weird, new, different idea.
Right.
I feel like so many Twilight Zone episodes sort of have that as like a sub-theme or leitmotif, one might say.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes this episode a little more universal, because the plea that he's making to his friend is, it's not just once you stop playing, you become old. It's basically like once you stop being willing to try new things, or, you know, really take the joy in life, then you're not really living anymore. I mean, you can extrapolate that out beyond just old people in a retirement community. I think, like, you know, anyone stuck in like a drudgy office job can get the point of this episode.
yes, so, definitely, 100%.
Yeah.
Not that either one of us would know about that, of course. We're just free living podcasters on the run.
Yeah, but you know, it's still wrapped in the favorite Twilight Zone package of person wanting to get back to youth one way or another. It's almost a little interesting that we're looking at it from this far vantage, it's normally like guys in their 30s who are like, gosh, I want to be a kid again. It's kind of like these people are a little more reasonable in their desires, it seems.
Yeah. Well, that was another thing I was kind of thinking about is like this episode would have a different connotation, or this story would have a different connotation now, because I feel like we're so youth obsessed as a culture now that like old people don't need to be reminded that they're supposed to be young or supposed to want to be young. I mean, that's just a constant. Every advertisement and every like aspect of our culture, I think, kind of, not that it would be cruel or something, but I just feel that like it would have a different feeling now.
I know we can sometimes be like PC police-ish, but I kind of even wonder if like the idea could be a touch offensive of like, you know, old people just want to be young or something. Like there can be joy in all stages of life at one time or another. It's just, you know, this person happened to be in a pretty depressing retirement community where I guess that's where like the metaphor of it all comes in. It's not so much that like everyone around him is old. It's just that everyone around him is kind of like given up on really experiencing joy in life. And so this is what he has to do to bring that back. Yeah.
And it just takes like the, you know, the metaphor and just literalizes it, which is like, you know, what a really good Twilight Zone episode does, is the idea of accepting new things makes you young at heart, but then, of course, because it's the Twilight Zone, it actually makes you young, you know?
And because it's the Twilight Zone, it takes it that step further and makes it kind of a bittersweet, or, you know, by the person who was unable to believe gets left behind is kind of in a worse off place than they were at the beginning.
There's something kind of neat about that in a way, in that like the episode, Charlie seems to be the main character, and he is. But then at the end, you really kind of, you're focused on Ben's emotions. You know what I mean? It's sort of interesting. It's like, it's rare that you have an episode about like, you know, where there's like a clear protagonist and it doesn't end on their emotional state. You know what I mean? It's just, it's interesting, you know?
Well, I mean, it ends up kind of being, I mean, I don't know if I'm going too far off the deep end to say like a character sketch of these two people. I mean, it's just kind of like, and it doesn't play polemic or anything, but you basically just have these two competing viewpoints. You know, you have the guy who's begging, let's go out and like still take life by the horns and live it, and one person who's taking the viewpoint of like, you've led a good life and now the best path is just to die with dignity quietly and not make a fuss. The old Ben could be more of a stereotype if it weren't handled so well. I think he could have been, it could have been maybe a little bit more caricature or cliche, but I think it skirts the line. And I do think the main character, Charles, I think he skirts the line of just a little bit too manic pixie old man girl.
Manic pixie old guy. MPOG.
Right. But you raise an interesting point.
This is definitely taking it back away from the more serious side. But there's something kind of cool about like the way kids games are ubiquitous, and sort of like no one really knows where they come from, but like you like they seem to pass in this sort of like interestingly viral way without anyone really like, I mean, no one like explains how to play hide and go seek to you exactly.
I mean like everybody just like, gets Pokemon. I mean, it's just it's like rolling off a log. You know? I don't know, but I hear what you're saying.
And you remember when we were talking about that episode where it was both revealed that we had like drug wars on our TI calculators? I mean, it's something so interesting about how this stuff just like spreads, and it's like not clear what the mechanism is, but like every kid knows little weird games like these.
Yeah.
Just like everyone plays Ring of Levio.
Exactly.
What we doing next?
Bios and trivia. Bios and trivia. Bios and trivia. Yeah. Scott, Siegfried, Mark Grams Jr., Siegfried and Grams, and IMDb.
The main character, Charles, was played by a guy named Ernest Truex. His son in the episode was played by his real-life son, Barry Truex.
And in fact, the footage captured in the car was documentary footage.
This isn't criticizing, but it's still very pedantic. The title refers to a children's game related to tag, hide and seek, and capture the flag, which can be played outdoors with as many as 3 to a few dozen players. The game is one of skill, strategy, and stealth, as well as fleetness.
As well as fleetness.
Yes.
Was that put there by like someone from Milton Bradley trying to like gauge market interest in their new Kick the Can board game or something?
I don't know.
Okay, go on.
So, Kick the Can was remade into a segment for Twilight Zone the movie. This bit was directed by Steven Spielberg and starred Scatman Carruthers as Mr. Bloom. The Spielberg segment was, slightly tweaked. It's not quite the same story as this one, but the same basic premise is still about the same. So, old guy comes into the community and teaches everyone how to drink Pepsi and be cool, more or less.
There's some stuff from the Graham's book. Apparently, George Clayton Johnson really. There's a very long quote which I won't read, but he talks about Steven wanted to direct it. I wasn't so sure about him, but eventually I said okay. Mm-hmm. And then there's just this long quote about how he gave them all these notes, and the quote ends with George Clayton Johnson saying, "So all in all, I came away from the experience satisfied, except for my real disappointment that Spielberg didn't have a clearer idea of story." Just love the cockiness of that.
This Spielberg kid, he's gotten a couple things right, but I don't know.
I mean, he knows how to point a camera at a thing, but he doesn't exactly know story.
He can do a big fish movie, sure, but I don't know if I'd trust him with Kick the Can.
Yeah. Did you and Grams talk over Kick the Can at Monster Bash?
No, we were too busy knocking him back. It got crazy.
Damn, man. That Grams could put him away.
Yeah, that 10 a.m. Sunday, bull session.
I hear you. Martin Grams, in book form, has a few more other tidbits, but I'll just use this as a plug. You should buy his book. Mm-hmm. It's called The Twilight Zone, Unlocking the Door to a Television Classic. It is 798 odd pages.
It's available to purchase for $19.95 plus $43 for shipping.
Exactly. Check it out. But that's it for now. What about bios?
Ernest Truex played Charles Whitley. He was also in What You Need. John Marley played Mr. Cox. He was also in The Old Man in the Cave. Burt Mustin played Carlson. He was also in Night of the Meek. I think he played Old Man in both of those, so really stretching. Hank Patterson played Freytag. He was also in Come Wander With Me and Ring-a-Ding.
Probably.
Oh.
Freitag. German word for Friday.
Also in Come Wander With Me, or in Ring-a-Ding Girl.
Ring-a-ding.
Good. 2 in a row. Boom.
Marjorie Bennett played Mrs. Summers. She was also in No Time Like the Past and The Chaser. Eve McVeigh played the night nurse. She was also in I Am the Night, Color Me Black. Written, as you've said, by George Clayton Johnson. He wrote 7 Twilight Zone episodes in all. This closes out his episodes for us. So his totals was this: 90 Years Without Slumbering, Nothing in the Dark, A Game of Pool, A Penny for Your Thoughts, Execution, and The Four of Us Are Dying. So
he definitely likes to write episodes about old people dying. Nothing in the Dark in this one, I guess, and 9 Years Without Slumbering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and he was, I think, the youngest of the writers. Something kind of interesting about that.
Yeah, it's a little bit. I mean, I'm sure one day we'll do some mega monster recap. But what's your instant take?
I think this is probably the best of his episodes. I mean, I think we liked Nothing in the Dark, but I think this one's a little bit better.
What about Game of Pool?
In terms of pure enjoyment, I mean, Game of Pool is up there. I mean, what were the other ones? I mean, I think Four of Us Are Dying is also really good, too, in its own way. Yeah. But I think this or Nothing in the Dark is probably the crown jewel of the George Clayton Johnson oeuvre. What about you? What do you think?
I don't know. I kind of would think this or a Game of Pool, personally. I mean, this one more sentimental. I don't know. I'd have to think about it and stew on it for a little bit more, but
I'd have to watch them again and see which one makes me cry.
Right, exactly. Directed by Lamont Johnson. He directed 8 episodes total. We still need to see The Passage on the Lady Anne and The Shelter before we can really get down deep into Lamont. Sadly, this week we do not have a Mystery Science Theater connection.
Skunked. Yeah. But we probably do have an IMDb rating, which is
7.7.
That's low.
It's middle, and
yeah, but I thought this episode was like a beloved classic.
You know, I don't think it was as much. I think it was a little unexpected when Spielberg chose this episode to be the segment for the movie.
Yeah, well, he doesn't really understand stories.
Well,
so.
yeah.
Yeah, I was under the impression that this was like, but I guess not. I mean, 7.7 is, I think execution was more, know. What do you think?
You know, I feel like I've watched this episode in the past and thought it was more middling, and I've grown older, and my 2-year-old has started making rumblings about putting me in the home, and it's just starting to, I don't know, there's something about maybe just being at a different season of life and appreciating things more. I don't know, but I do remember watching it in the past and not getting much out of it, and watching it this time and just being a sucker for every time the walking distance music came in. And I do think that the lead actor by and large is good. I think he sometimes pushes it into like Horace Ford territory, which is a tightrope that's hard to walk, but it's actually kind of a good example of like the Horace Ford guy just went flying off the tightrope and slammed into every actor around him on the way down, whereas this guy, he gets close to the edge, but I think he manages it well enough.
I agree. I do think that at times it's just a little bit much, and I just, in certain, especially the sprinkler moment. I mean, I'm not exactly sure how that could have been played better, but like,
it needed
I feel
to be
like if you had
activity somehow.
Yeah, I'm not saying that he holds the episode back, because I think
I don't think it's his
job. But I think if you'd had like a really like A+ actor in there, Sir Anthony Hopkins and Kick the Can. No, but I think it would have been great, because like, I don't know, I feel like this episode's up there for me. Like, it's like in the 8-ish range, but I think if you had like great acting all the way through without a false step, this could have been higher.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I feel like I'm a sucker for the sentimentals, so I think there maybe are people who would see this as just a little bit more, I don't know, rote, or maybe it just wouldn't grab them in the same way. I do think there are flaws in the episode, and the emotions kind of paper over them for me, but I still at the same time can acknowledge I don't think this is like one of the best episodes of the Twilight Zone. So I was coming around kind of in the same territory, probably like maybe 9-, but I could see 8+ too. It's right around there. So maybe 8+. I don't think it's phenomenal. I think it's one that I personally really like, but I don't necessarily think it's a great episode of the Twilight Zone.
Well, I mean, I think it's very well directed. I think there's like a number of like really interesting shots where like you have like the kids playing in the forefront and the action's kind of happening in the backdrop, and then there's other shots. I just think it's very well composed and put together. And I think that the fact that it's like a sentimental, like sweet episode, but it ends on such a bittersweet, sad note, really does a lot for it. So
I'm gonna go 9-. I'm gonna flip flop a little bit.
It's kind of funny because I'm sticking with 8. Yeah. I'm just saying that I think like this is a very well made episode. I think like. The only thing that really holds it back is that like the fundamental idea is a little kind of wacky tobacco.
Well, I don't know. It's just it seems a little pat, but I think you do.
Yeah.
Cool.
Speaking of Pat, that's our podcast. That wraps it up. I think that was a request from somebody.
Yeah, that was requested by Bat Mary on Tumblr. So thank you very much.
Bat Mary. I feel like she's requested a few.
Yeah.
Next week we're going to do another request, but you're going to have to stay tuned to our social media to find out, or you could just email us directly. There's lots of ways to get in touch. John, what are they?
You could send us an email at twilightpwn@gmail.com. You can get in touch with us on Twitter at twilightpwn. You can check out our Facebook page. You could check out our website, twilightpwn.tumblr.com. You can listen to us in any kind of podcatcher app, and you could subscribe to us in iTunes if you're over there in iTunes. If you leave us a rating or a review, we really appreciate those.
Thanks much. So what was your favorite like childhood game to play? I mean, aside from Ring of Leaving.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's a bunch. When you were talking about red light, green light, I do have memories of being in elementary school and playing that and really liking it. But
isn't red light, green light just... I was looking up the rules and I was like, really? That's it? It's just like...
Someone's turned around and like...
But then you just say red light, you say green light and people run towards you and you say red light to make them stop. Like, I don't...
Isn't there some game where you like turn your back on people and they can move, but if you turn around, if you see them moving, they're out? Am I... I don't remember.
Probably.
I don't know.
That's called grandmother's eyelash or whatever.
How about yourself?
I loved hide and go seek. I really I loved it, and I kind of felt. I remember distinctly having a growth spurt at some point, and like being no good at hide and go seek anymore, and being really bummed about that.
All right.
Yeah, cool. All right, talk to you next week, John.
Later. After he's watching the kids play kick the can, like he said, he grabs the can and he kind of holds on to it for a while. And I can't set this up in any way. I just, when he's walking around with the can, I just wrote, "Old guy's got a can signed by Peyton Canning, MVP of the NKCL, 3 years running."
Well, it is your edit this week, John.
I couldn't let that
do with that.
I'm
what
sure
you
if I could have, set that up in any sensible way, it'd be good stuff. But
would have killed. All right. Well, moving on.